Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. In the first meeting between the leaders of the US and China in a year, Joe Biden and Xi Jinping made it clear they wanted to stabilize their countries' relationship after months of heightened tensions. In a press conference afterward, Joe Biden said talks had been the most constructive and productive they have ever had. But can each side deliver on the concrete steps needed to prevent confrontation and conflict between the two powers? With me to discuss this are Lai I-chung, president of Taiwan think tank the Prospect Foundation, and Charles Wu, National Chengchi University Department of Diplomacy professor and chair. President Lai and Charles, a very warm welcome to the show today. During the more than 4-hour meeting, Xi Jinping sought to reassure Joe Biden on Taiwan. According to Reuters, Xi said China has no plans for military action against Taiwan in coming years, but he did lay out conditions where the use of force could be used. On the eve of their summit, both sides agreed to restart military-to-military dialogue and climate change talks to curb emissions of methane. Both of these talks were suspended after then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan in August 2022. Opening the more than 4-hour meeting, Joe Biden said the two leaders must not let competition veer into conflict, while Xi said it was unrealistic for one side to remodel the other, while saying he believed in a promising future for their bilateral relationship. Let's take a look.
I value our conversation because I think it's paramount that you and I understand each other clearly, leader to leader, with no misconceptions or miscommunication.
Conflict and confrontation has unbearable consequences for both sides. I'm still of the view that major country competition is not the prevailing trend of current times and cannot solve the problems facing China and the United States or the world at large. Planet Earth is big enough for the two countries to succeed.
So, President Lai, let me come to you first. What did you make of this summit between the two leaders?
Well, the summit is there because both sides are needed. For the United States, President Biden believed that in order to manage the relationship, the personal diplomacy, especially between leaders, between him and Xi Jinping particularly, that's the most critical way of the understanding as well as the delivering the clear message to the other side, and also receiving the reaction from the other side about what will be his read about those. So that's, and also the timing for the United States is important because next year is going to be an election cycle year. And the atmosphere for a more moderate policy toward China probably won't be there. So in order to lay out the groundwork for the stabilizations and the room for the maneuver, probably right now is the only window that they can have. And there are also the other things, such as the Chinese, the senior leaders has been disappearing, as well as Chinese economic conditions that the United States is also very much concerned about how the Xi Jinping is reviewing those situations, as well as how Xi Jinping will react to those conditions. So the face-to-face meeting, since everyone knows that Xi Jinping is the ultimate decider, for Biden that's going to be very important. And for Xi Jinping himself, he also needs a meeting because he wanted to have not only the stabilizing the relation with the United States, but also he wants for the U.S. to cooperate and give him some room in order for China to get out of this economic downturn and all the internal pressure that he's facing.
So, Charles, President Lai mentioned that both sides are eager for these talks, and that also for Biden especially, he said that leader to leader, person to person communication was vital, so that there isn't miscommunication. Did you also read in it that both sides are eager to make this a success?
I agree with Professor Lai. They both have very difficult domestic economic situations, especially in economic. For example, U.S. face inflation while China probably face potential deflations. And also, the next year's election for the United States, Biden has to settle down and give some at least benefits to his constituency. How he solved the issue of climate change, also because sustainable development issues. So if we look at this one, and also China, I think he has internal kind of challenge about his capability to rule the powers. We know that some disappeared, about Li Shangfu and also Qinggang. Probably this is a sign people try to challenge his power. And also how he solved, we call the domestic deflation issues and also the housing issues. So Xi need a more stable diplomatic situation with the United States. So like what I say, if both need this kind of ideology and this kind of logic, a more stable U.S.-China relations will help them both.
President Lai, so what was the most remarkable points for you from this? What do you take away most? Perhaps it's the conversation about Taiwan.
Well, in Taiwan, of course, people basically pay attention to what they talk about Taiwan. But I think Taiwan in this U.S.-China summit is just one topic, although it's a very important topic. And the United States is not going to back down about what China demand them to do, and China is not going to back down as well. So basically, it is the reiterance about what they have and already about Taiwan. Although the China earlier, like Xi Jinping, want to push for the U.S. to publicly stated that they are opposing Taiwan independence.
As opposed to that they don't support.
Xi Jinping told the U.S. China does not have a plan to attack Taiwan. But Xi Jinping, he has the lying record in the past. Like he told the Obama right there that China is not going to militarize the island in the South China Sea. But 1 month later, so it remains to be seen.
Okay, so perhaps we can't take that on his word. Charles, so what we're essentially hearing from President Lai is that really the statements on Taiwan perhaps are not that different to it doesn't change the needle on the issue. Was there anything that you found coming out of this summit that was a change, that was different?
During the Bali summit, Xi said again, Taiwan issue is the core of China's core interest and also is the bedrock of the U.S.-China political foundations. And this time he also said again, it's a red line of U.S.-China, the core interest. So he is very clear about that. And Biden also reiterated again, he has no intention to change one China policy, which I think he wants to bring we call the strategic ambiguity back to the table again, want to stabilize the U.S.-China relations, especially for the past couple of months. After Nancy Pelosi's visits, the two sides have very intensive relations about Taiwan. But one thing we need to be aware is Xi mentioned that he urged Washington stop to militarize Taiwan. It's very important for this time for two great power leaders to meet. At least they can talk to each other face to face, make sure they don't want to get into huge conflicts.
Okay, so Charles is saying that just the meeting itself, the fact that they did meet, is a huge step forward. Let's talk about President Lai, the military-to-military channel. So they agreed actually before, on the eve of the summit, they agreed to restart that dialogue. How significant is that?
To a certain extent, it's important, but I'm not going to say that this is going to be the solution for a lot of things. Because even before the military dialogue has been stopped, the U.S.-China military confrontation already exists. And the dialogue itself is good in the sense that they can talk. There's a channel for the communications. But I would say that, first of all, China does not have a defense minister yet. So who is going to be the one that from China to talk with the U.S. counterpart? And also for the U.S., the Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, the best counterpart for him is actually the Vice Chairman of CMC, rather than the Defense Minister, who basically in China is just a liaison officer for the external engagement. So that we still have this very uneven level of the communications. And not to mention about from the theater command to theater command, as well as other areas. So I have to say that the dialogue probably will be there, but first of all, right now there are no Chinese counterpart that can talk to the United States. So who would the U.S. be able to talk to? Probably we'll go back to talk to Wang Yi, the foreign ministry side. So that basically go back to the very fundamental the issues there.
But there was they said that there will be a meeting between Lloyd Austin.
If that is a CFC Vice Chairman, then that could mean something. But if somebody else, then I highly doubt it would that achieve any result.
Okay. Charles, let's touch a little bit on the supposed friendship between these two men. How much was this sort of, explored or played up by both sides, Biden and Xi?
We know that they met each other a long time ago, and they have maintained this kind of relationship for a long time. Even though we know that this is their first time they meet person to person after the Bali summit, I still believe they have some personal, we call the network or friendship or even relationship. Especially when we say Chinese people, they pay more attention to this kind of networking or 关系 or relationships. Probably they can help and reduce the tensions between the two great powers leaders. But however, like what I say, this time, even they have some meeting, but I still agree the result of a high-level meeting between China and the United States still merely a promise of further meetings, which means they promise there will be further meetings on different aspects, no matter in diplomatic or militaries. I don't think they will make any kind of very concrete solutions. There will be kind of different meetings afterwards, try to maintain a stable channels of communication between Beijing and Washington.
Okay. President Lai, let's go back to the Bali meeting. So that was almost a year to the day of this meeting. And let's chart what's actually happened. Is Xi Jinping in a much weaker position this year than he was last year?
I think those are two different stories. Bali meeting, what China always wanted to return everything back to the Bali meetings as position, is that what China believed that the United States need to go back there. But of course, Xi Jinping, since the Bali meeting and all the way until today, almost like a year, Xi Jinping, his popularity as well as his demand, a command on the internal political apparatus within China, significantly weakened. Although he's still the ultimate deciders about everything and policy and the Communist Party, there's no other available challenger against him. But there are the different voices coming out to accuse him more and more. So that, and not to mention about the inner society, that Xi Jinping is no longer popular. When we talk about no longer popular, which means that his popularity rate is actually below the 50%, even under the 40-something. So that the Xi Jinping is domestically challenged, rather than externally, that he is also facing some difficult decisions to make. For example, about the, for example, like the what's happening in the Ukraine, and also the war on the Israel and the Hamas war, that the Chinese position about Iran as well as Hamas, and although that gave the Chinese the lead about what is relationship with the Arabian countries. But it also put China in a dead, set in a dead opposite to the United States, Israel, and some European countries. So those are the things that Xi Jinping, in terms of the foreign policy levels, the position that he had vis-a-vis the United States, after this year of the upheaval and up and down, it's not going to be the same thing that they had during the Bali, where everyone want to meet with Xi Jinping, everyone at that time, and want to see what China will get out of this zero COVID. But this time it's not like that.
Yeah, Charles.
Yeah.
So last year it was a completely different scenario, as President Lai laid out. Xi Jinping had just started his historic third term. He removed the term limits. He'd stacked the 7-man, the most influential group of people in China with loyalists to him. How has that all changed now?
We know that when Xi started his third term, he wanted to strengthen and also want to get more power in his winning coalitions. This is what we see all his people, the other 6 people, become echo chambers. This is what, when observers talk about that, they are quite nervous about whether there will be a more nuanced or more kind of useful strategies for Xi Jinping from the winning coalitions. Especially when Xi, at the time, he wanted to adopt a more assertive diplomatic policy, no matter in South China Sea, cross-strait relations, or even toward the United States. This is why we want to observe if Xi can actually handle or kind of control his power in his domestic politics. For example, the economic issues, like what I mentioned before, China faces kind of potential deflation issues, the housing problems, and also the jobless issues in mainland China. So China also we want to maintain the continuous FDI within mainland China.
So what's the root of all these problems, and where can the U.S. help with this?
I mean, the root causes is from the pandemic and the zero COVID policies, and they need to take time to recover from this one. I think everybody knows that. And I think United States also know that. But like I say, it's very hard for these two countries to decouple, always they de-risk. So this time, I think also Biden and Xi, they talk about how to maintain a stabilized bilateral trade relations.
Yeah.
I think Xi, also Biden, they pay attention to this one.
Yeah.
And also, I think Biden also wants Xi to make sure you are not trying to, give any kind of problems to the American investors in mainland China, or try to relieve at least some restrictions on the American entrepreneurs in mainland China. So I still believe this time the two great powers meeting is good for their future cooperations.
President Lai, so a couple of things Charles said there. Xi Jinping said that our two countries cannot turn our backs on each other, and he emphasized that this is the most significant bilateral relationship in the world. Both sides agreeing that that there is a responsibility to the world to manage this relationship. So what hope do you have going forward, seeing the summit, press statements, press conferences for their relationship?
Well, I think that judged from the past structural dynamics, probably they will have a 1 week of the celebration about how this summit and achieve, and then after that, it started to argue again. Because the structure is just that they are opposite on the fundamental. They are fundamentally different in so many issues, and many of them they just cannot just go back to their own sphere and not to interact so that they can avoid the tensions. They can't, because it's just like economically, politically, geopolitically, they are so interdependent or interacted so much. Just talk about the foreign policy issues, that the war in Ukraine is one, and right now the Israel-Hamas. China will be demanded to make decisions. China will be demanded that they need to work on something. And not to mention about the Russia, the North Korea axis right now, it become more and more intense. And how would Chinese actions about the Russia and North Korea, would China continue to support the sanction against North Korea or not? That's going to be another very critical way that the people are looking at. Then the Chinese economic issues. Right now, it's not more than about recovery from the pandemic, from the COVID. It's actually about the Chinese national security, Trump economic development policy. That strategy, that mindset, trump everything, and force the foreign company FDI to go away. So you're
saying that's the root of the problems that we mentioned? Perhaps the prioritization of security over economy?
Yeah, definitely that is the problem. And a lot of people point out that you cannot do that. But the Xi Jinping, whether that's because of echo chamber effect, or Xi Jinping, he is firmly believed that the U.S.-China competition is there, so that he needs to have a more secure state to prepare China for the competition vis-a-vis the United States, so that the national security apparatus will trump everything, including economic development, and continue this way. So that basically touch upon how Xi Jinping see the future of China, see the future of U.S.-China relationship, especially after year 2008, when China believed that, and also Xi Jinping subscribed to that theory, that the rise of the East and the decline of the West, that's going to be there. And China represents the future, and United States probably is the country that's about to go down. And the Chinese, the great renaissance of Chinese nation, that achievement will be there in the middle of the centuries. So if that belief and direction is still there, then all the conflict, all the confrontation will continue to be there.
Charles, do you think that there is any room for concessions on the Chinese side for some of those issues that President Lai has mentioned? The influence with Iran in the South China Sea, for example, an area where both have interests, of course, is artificial intelligence. So there is the desire that, for example, AI does not control nuclear weapons.
China right now, they don't want to really take sides on what we call the regional conflicts, no matter Ukraine or in Hamas. They try to use a more ambiguous way, try to not to stand in either sides. However, they still aim to maintain their kind of rhetorics about sustainable developments, how to build their One Belt and Road initiative. However, like what I say, they're still facing a huge problem on their domestic economics. They will give some impacts on their diplomatic influences to other countries. So for Xi Jinping, the first mission is how to solve the FDI's living issues. I think if we pay attention to the news recently, he keep mentioning how to release the restriction on the foreign direct investment and also for foreign countries, companies. And also based on this time, I think Xi and Biden's meetings, I believe they will try to figure out some way U.S. will maintain their supreme on their AI or their technology, while China want to at least stabilize some chips provide to their domestic needs.
Okay, and finally, President Lai, what will be the first test, you think, coming up? You mentioned the elections, and you also mentioned that there will be perhaps Biden will be required to take a firmer stance on China. What did you mean by that?
Of course, the one interesting thing is that just one day before the Xi and Biden's meeting, Xi has a great influence in forcing the blue and white to coalesce, probably into one ticket. So that's a very distinct signal pointing to the United States that you accuse me about election interference in Taiwan. Now I'm going to show you that exactly the kind of power influence I have, and in a very public way. So it's not about the cyber or the disinformation. It's about the forcing my political will on those Taiwan subordinates, in his view. So I think if that is the attitude that China demonstrated, then the election result, if next year, if the William Lai continue to win, the Chinese reaction probably will be more severe because what he believed that it is the slapping of his face and about Xi Jinping, his personal credibilities, as well as the kind of the showing to the United States about the Chinese influence is no longer there, and he needs to get something back. So that is going to be the one of the critical point that we all need to pay attention to regarding the next year about the U.S.-China relations on Taiwan issues. Now the next thing is also about the war in Ukraine, because the next year the war in Ukraine probably will enter not only a second year, but both Ukraine and Russia will be in the state of the fatigue.
Is it entering the third year?
This over 2 years and enter the third year. That will be in the state of fatigue. And would the Chinese rumor to continue to provide the Russian raw potential on the war in Ukraine? That's something that not only the U.S. but the European country will have a very strong demand, and the Chinese need to answer about those.
So big issues facing the two leaders of the world's powers. Charles, very, very final thoughts. Joe Biden tweeted that there had been real progress made. Can the personal relationship between these two men, can it save their bilateral relationship?
Like what I say, when we look at the great power competitions, if we only look at the competition way, there will be no way for cooperation.
20 seconds.
So like what I say, this time if Joe Biden say, even he used the rhetoric, huge progress, we still believe there's still some room for them to improve, but however, they still make some progress. At least they face to each other and talk the hardcore issues they really care about.
Okay, thank you so much, President Lai I-chung and Charles Wu, for joining Taiwan Talks today. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching our show today. Stay safe and see you next time.